Who voted to make Athens Clark County a sanctuary city? Please stop lying. You're insulting our intelligence, sir. You need to resign.
Resign now!
Resign!
The Athens Clark County Unified Government is welcoming to people from all lands and backgrounds and strives to foster a community where individuals and families of all statuses feel safe, are able to prosper, and can breathe free.
Laken Riley, an Augusta University nursing student, was killed while jogging Thursday morning. Police say a friend reported Riley missing. Officers found her body in the woods behind a popular running trail. The following day, police arrested 26-year-old Jose Ibarra. U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement says Ibarra, a Venezuelan citizen, unlawfully entered the country near El Paso, Texas in September 2022. He was detained and then released by Border Protection. In September 2023, ICE says Ibarra was arrested in New York City for allegedly endangering a child.
I've received many calls, many emails, many queries from the press in recent days about this notion of a sanctuary city, and so I want to lay some things to rest here today. This term sanctuary city doesn't have a sole legal or procedural definition. You can look in Georgia statute and you can find a clear definition for a unified government. You can look in contractual language and you can find out exactly what it means to be an SEC institution. Sanctuary city doesn't track with either of those. And so that term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what
Many,
it means.
many of the elements,
Liar!
many of the elements,
Liar!
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 we
Liar!
are here to listen.
Liar!
You're a liar!
We're here to listen.
Liar!
There'll be
You're
time for
a liar.
questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your hands for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
city
things
means.
that are disallowed by Georgia law.
Sanctuary policy, which is what we do.
And we contribute a document every year to the Georgia Department of Audits indicating that we do not correspond to these definitions under state law.
Yes, you do.
And no policies have been adopted
Please
by the
stop
mayor and
lying.
commission
You're
that have
insulting
created
our
sanctuary
intelligence.
city status in
Sir,
Athens.
You need to resign.
One protocol that
Resign
sometimes
now.
arises,
Resign!
Resign now!
You
One
allowed
protocol.
this to happen, sir.
one protocol that
You
sometimes
voted for
arises
this.
is the approach that sheriff's offices and jails take to what are termed detainers. The sheriff's office approach has varied over the years, but this question, again, in the purview of the elected sheriff, honors detainers when issued by a federal judge or federal magistrate. In the main, I caution against conflating immigration and crime. The data demonstrates that the two are not connected. Because the impact of federal immigration policy on localities has been under such consistent discussion in recent months, I do want to say a few words about this. It's my 18th year as a local government policymaker, and my work has overlapped with 4 U.S. presidencies and numerous iterations of Congress. All of them have failed to reach agreement on how to handle immigration. We had Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush in the White House, and Tip O'Neill and Ted Kennedy in Congress the last time this was meaningfully addressed in Washington, D.C. Appreciate the work of the recent bipartisan group of senators, and this recent bipartisan group in the Senate has crafted a bill to make headway on this issue. While no legislation is perfect, this would be a step forward, and I urge Congress and the White House to act now and demonstrate a willingness to continue to work on complementary legislation in the future. My time in office has demonstrated that if your approach to legislation is all or nothing, you're going to get nothing every single time. Both current U.S. residents and prospective immigrants benefit from a consistent and stable approach with adequate funding attached to it, and that is what our nation needs. If our approach to immigration is thought to change from day to day or month to month, desperate people fleeing war, famine, unstable governments, and drug cartels are willing to roll the dice and undertake a journey to the United States. In addition to this information, I've included in the document that you've received some data,
Some of them are going to be bad.
and I ask you to go ahead and take a look at this data, because oftentimes people will wish to ascribe certain things to the Athens community and I want you to have some accurate information in your hands. What I want to leave you with is this notion that the only appropriate number of murders in this community, and the number that we are going to be working our tails off every day for, is 0. I can say that on behalf of everybody here in the unified government of Athens-Clarke
That
County.
means you'll have to deport all illegal criminal aliens.
I have a number of members of the press
That's
here,
the only way to do that, sir.
and
The
so
DA will lose the cases.
what I would like is, if you're a member of the press, if you'd identify yourself and the outlet with which you're associated, and ask your question. I'd like to answer questions for a little bit.
Mayor Kelly Girtz, Claudia Kelly Bazan with Fox News. Good morning. Before I ask my question, could you first address the protesters that are here? They're obviously really upset with the situation. If you want to just address them being here and the signs that they're holding. You know, the blood is on your hands, justice for Laken Riley.
I'd say trauma affects all of us. And I understand in the wake of a great tragedy like this, we are all deeply hurt. And everybody expresses their hurt differently.
Who voted?
Just
Who
to
voted
follow up on that, you
to
mentioned
make
something about
Athens-Clarke County a
legislation, and I couldn't really
sanctuary
hear because of
city?
the protest.
Sir,
Could you just-
who? What's their name?
What legislation were you talking about?
I'm an old man. My ears can only hear one thing at a time. And so I'm asking you, Claudia, if you'd repeat that question.
Yeah.
We wanna
you-
ask questions,
You mentioned
too.
something
Go
about
ahead, ma'am.
legislation earlier. I couldn't hear what you were saying because of the protest. Could you just repeat what you were saying about legislation?
I certainly will. There's been no legislation from this government that has created sanctuary city status. I also mentioned the prospect of federal legislation.
8/20/2019. Liar.
I need to call on one person at a time. I was a high school teacher for a lot of years, and I got better behavior out of them.
And then my final question for you is, 2 public defenders have now given their notice that they're gonna be representing Jose Ibarra in this case. What's your reaction to this notion that, you know, taxpayer dollars are essentially gonna be funding the defense for this illegal immigrant, whether he's found guilty or not, he is here. Illegally.
As a legislator, that set of procedural justice is not in my domain. So you'd have to ask those folks either in public defense or prosecution.
Do you have any reaction to that, just being the mayor of the city?
Don't at this time. Yes.
Mayor, Steve Gelbach from WSB TV. Some of their concerns have to do with the 2019 resolution that was passed and signed by you after you came into office. It is entitled in support of immigrants and the undocumented community here, and it does state that all statuses are welcome. Do you want to respond to that? And does that give you say it's only a term and definition, but does that give the impression that this is a sanctuary city?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much for asking. I need to be able to answer clearly, so I'll need the voices in the room to listen. Appreciate that.
Are you gonna rescind it?
What I'd like to note is that here in Athens-Clarke
You're
County,
fired.
we center our work in the public
You're
sector.
fired. You need to go, sir. We don't want to hear from you no more. You're not defending us. You're not upholding your oath of office, sir. You are lawless. You are a criminal.
I'm trying to ask a question. So your press members.
If non-members of the press
Yeah, I'm a press member too.
Might be asked to
We,
leave.
The people. We created this government and we pay your salary. You do what we want you to do, not what you want to do.
Not
That's
your
the
personal
problem
agenda.
with this lawlessness in our country.
I've
You're not upholding your
I've got a
oath,
question from a member of the
sir.
press.
So obviously that gives the impression to the community and even parents out there who are sending students to your city to go to college. What do you say to that?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. I want to say that we center our work here in Athens-Clarke County in people's humanity. And part of everybody's humanity is the expectation of human dignity. While 2019 was not that long ago, you might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like
This
Charlottesville.
is an invasion. When I was
So
younger,
when we have-
I was a criminal. And you know what I thought about doing? Crossing the border to Mexico to get away from my crimes.
Son, I'm going to ask you to
Thanks
leave.
Jesus Christ, he saved me, and I no longer live that lawless life, which you do.
Son, I'm going to ask you to leave.
You are lawless, Mr. Mayor.
I'd be glad to schedule some time with you if you'd like some individual time.
Yeah, I'd like to spend some time with you.
Let's do that, but I need to continue.
I got a question.
How about a town hall?
Sorry.
I'm with
So
we the
are you going
people.
to
I have a
rescind the
question.
resolution? Is that still in place? Does that give the impression this is a sanctuary city?
What-
Even though you can't call it that under Georgia law?
What we wish to do is dignify everybody's humanity. There's nothing in that
No,
resolution.
no,
Be a white
that's
that
not
creates-
the law.
You
You
did
took
not
an
do
oath to
the
uphold
writing.
the law, not your feelings or nor your opinion.
Chief, I don't know
You
if
called
That's
me a
what
white
you're upholding.
supremacist.
No, sir. You're talking BS to us right now.
I need to answer one question at a time.
Yeah.
Right here, sir. Alex
I'm going to continue my answer from a moment ago, and then I'll get it.
You called me a white supremacist in your resolution.
Well,
That was not
no.
nice to me, was it?
What-
We've had enough. and
what we wish
have
to
a
do-
right to speak. This is America still.
What we wish to do
Okay. All right.
is to understand,
Stop talking if you'll call upon me so I can ask a question.
that those families that are here came here under less than ideal circumstances. I've outlined my desire for better federal legislation that would standardize the immigration process. We've not been living in that environment. I mentioned I was a career educator. I've worked with a lot of students and their families in this community. And the practical reality is that those families tend to be blended amongst a variety of immigration statuses. We want to create a stable environment for people in our communities. And when that community is disrupted by hate or vitriol, that's not a safe environment for their school children and their families to live in.
Called righteous indignation, sir.
The resolution speaks to that question, so.
It's not vitriol, it's
Mayor,
righteous
Christine
indignation.
McNair with 11 Alive News. I know that some of the protesters who are here right now are concerned with some of the language in the resolution. Could you address the aspect that talks about white nationalists and xenophobes have been emboldened by some politicians? Was that an issue that your community was dealing with at that time?
That's an issue the United States was dealing with in the late teens.
How about locally?
We received information of all kinds of terrible things.
Had anything happened here? I mean, was there any, I'm just trying to figure out
Mhm.
language-wise
We-
why that was.
We had hate activity toward members of this community, and we wish to indicate that we didn't want to embolden that hate activity.
Liars.
Moving
Sir,
on.
right here, Alex Capriello with News Nation. While we can debate whether or not Athens is a sanctuary city, the fact of the matter is Jose Ibarra and at least 4 or 5 other undocumented immigrants were living in that apartment. So I want to know whether or not you feel, as city leaders, that you owe the Laken Riley family an apology for allowing that to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
We are deeply sorry for this tragedy. The responsibility for this crime rests solely upon the perpetrator.
No, rest on you, sir. God Almighty has
Others.
said so.
Yep.
Got time for about 2 more.
God Almighty speaks today.
This could be a question for the chief. What is the current policy with the government when it comes to notifying
Sheriff wants to
federal
comply.
immigration authorities? I mean,
Nice.
and was this particular suspect, was he picked up for shoplifting? One of the representatives of the State House told our reporter there yesterday that did that interaction or was detained at some point by you guys?
Sure, there was an arrest made on him in October for a shoplifting case. That is an active case that I can't talk about. He was cited, which is common for certain misdemeanor offenses. When we have encounter with people, we run them through our GCIC as well as our NCIC. If there was any warnings or anything that had come back from the federal government holds warrants, then we would have held him at that time. And that was checked, and there was not any warrants at that time, nor any status. We can't look on our computer and tell you the status of someone's immigration. We don't have that information.
Did you notify federal authorities though, only if there's a particular warrant, I guess, for their arrest?
So if we place a hold on, then we would notify whatever federal authority that was, and then when they go to the jail, then that's where also the 287G program comes in, where federal authorities are notified. Comment on
Mayor,
details.
One more.
Estrada from Telemundo. Have you been approached by any entity like the sheriff's office or other entities to taking place 287G program that allows the federal government to deport people who has a criminal background? That is a program that check undocumented persons to see if they have a criminal background. Have you been approached for somebody to implement this program in Athens, Clark?
I have not been approached. Again, largely that's a phenomenon that happens at booking, that happens in the jail, which by Georgia statute is under the sheriff's authority. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Sanctuary city, then please tell.
If you take your an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, sir? Yes or no?
Were there any other arrests?
Section Title 8, United States Code, Section 1325 says it is illegal for illegal criminal aliens to cross our border. Please stop lying. You're insulting our intelligence, sir. You need to resign.
Resign now!
Resign!
Resign now!
You allowed this to happen, sir. You voted for this. All right.
Take the winter term containment. The sheriff's office approach is very different than yours. But this question, again, in the purview of the elected sheriff, honors containers when issued.
While 2019 was not that long ago, you might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born.
Everybody's always blaming me for everything.